Welcome to our special segment, Brand Buzz, where we take a look at various trends from online to seasonal. Tonight, it's the adult gap year. Time off for employees is critical to job satisfaction, but in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, many are finding a few weeks off just isn't enough for those disillusioned and overworked. For some, an extended break is the key to keep from burning out or quitting altogether. To talk more about the benefits and potential consequences of offering employees adult gap years, I'm joined by Gail Wilson. She's a Professor Emerita at the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Well, we heard a lot about some of the pros of an adult gap year, but what are some cons? Are there any cons?
It sounds like a great thing, doesn't it? You know, take 3 months, 6 months away from your job and refresh and recharge. I think some of the cons can be seen on both sides for the employee and the employer. Cons would be, financially, I think is the biggest risk. Is it something you can afford to do to put your salary on hold, potentially if it's an unpaid leave, or also things like your health insurance and your retirement. Is your organization going to continue to contribute to your retirement and your Social Security and those kinds of things? So I think the con in that regard, to me, the biggest one is the financial risk, and is it something you can afford to do? I think also with a gap year or a sabbatical, and I kind of see those things as a little bit different, but the you got to have a plan. What are you going to do with that time? And it sounds great to have time off, but most of us want something productive and something meaningful to do. So what's your plan for those weeks or months that you're going to take off?
Right. In talking about the financial implications of this, I mean, for most people, it may not be a realistic thing to look forward to, because planning requires saving. And can you really take a year off if you're perhaps in the prime of your career or if you're climbing the ladder? Does this work better in certain industries?
I think, I come from the world of higher education, and sabbaticals have kind of been part of our existence for a long time. And, when your employer is going to give you that time to step away from your job, it generally comes with some expectation for a couple of different things. One, that you're going to work on a project, or you're going to do something that benefits you and the company, whether it's, in my case, as an academic, to do research or write articles or do presentations, but something that contributes and something that gives back to your company. Also, especially, and this is where I see the dividing line between the gap year idea and a sabbatical. With a sabbatical, at least in higher education, there's an expectation that you're coming back to work. And if you take a gap year and you take it unpaid, then that expectation might be very different. So I do think the industry expectation is going to be different.
Right. In tech, the CEO of TaskRabbit credits her success to taking a gap year to reflect on her passions and interest in tech. When it comes to certain companies, why aren't they offering more sabbaticals or extended leave? And does that have really much to do about the current state of the economy? I mean, it's been better in some years, not great right now, but what are the economic implications for companies?
I mean, obviously, how do you, especially in a smaller company, how do you finance, one person taking a paid leave and then potentially paying someone else to replace them? Can you afford to do that? I think that's the biggest obstacle I would see for any company. With larger companies with more employees, perhaps that can be sort of, the economies of scale can be different. But so to me, that would be the biggest drawback. And also the uncertainty of, I've invested in this individual to take this time off, and are they coming back? Are they going to come back to work? And then when they take that time off, what happens to their responsibilities? What happens to the tasks the projects that they were working on, and who's going to cover those responsibilities? So to me, that's the downside for the employer. But the upside is you've got a person who you really want to retain, and they need some time away, and they need to refresh, and they're burned out, as the introduction to your piece indicated. And you want them to come back, and you want them to come back refreshed. And so maybe it's it becomes worth it to make sure that you can retain that person.
I'm hearing a little bit more about this more recently, companies offering unlimited paid time off or PTO. Is that a potential middle ground? And also, is that realistic? Can people actually take unlimited time off?
Paid time off encompasses different things. So companies sometimes will let you kind of accumulate your paid time off, because that would include things like vacation days, sick days, other holiday pay, personal time, those kinds of things. So they may allow you to accrue some of those, and that might give you enough of a bank to take an extended leave. So there could be a little bit of a middle ground there.
And as we heard in our story, and I just know from personal experience, some countries, especially in Europe, year-long sabbaticals are normal or encouraged. What is the research behind that? And is that something that we could possibly see here in the United States or other parts of the world?
I think other countries have certainly been leaders in their flexibility with employees. I mean, not only with things like a paid time off or a sabbatical, but also with their family leave, maternity, leave, parental leave, and things like that. So they're certainly leading the way in those directions. Whether U.S. companies follow suit on that is hard to say, but as we become more global, as our industries and our businesses become more global, and you have employees that work in other countries, there is more of an expectation. There is a different expectation of what your time off is going to look like.
Professor Emerita, B. Gail Wilson, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time tonight. And that's it for this edition of Brand Buzz, but be sure to check out our other special content. You could always go to our website, cgtn.com.